now going to show you how to get started with the challenges. So you need to navigate to python.dunderdata.com. So that's over here, like this, python.dunderdata.com. Don't worry about anything to the right of the URL. You will land on this page. So this is my online site where I have challenges. I have other certifications available, but we're just going to focus on the challenges for now. So what you need to do in order to access the site is have a GitHub account. If you don't have one, you will create one. So you click on this link. If you do not have a GitHub account, then you need to click this link over here and sign up on GitHub. So you'll enter in your email, just create an account. Once you have an account, you'll have a username for that account. Once you have your account, you're going to come back here. So I have an account called Poker Test, and then enter your password down below. And this will allow you to access all of the challenges. So this should be your home screen. But what I want you to do is you have some tabs up above here. Click on the Assignments tab, and you'll see something a little bit different. But what I want you to do is click on this drop-down menu. I have more courses available to me for this particular account. But you should see a Python Challenges course somewhere over here. So click on this Python Challenges course, and then you'll get a list of all of the challenges. So there's a two-step process in order to access the challenge. So these are all of the challenges over here. You need to click the Fetch button. That will actually download the challenge, and it will place it in the Downloaded Assignments section down here like this. So I've already fetched the first one, but you'll need to actually click that Fetch button. Then you just go down here, click on challenge number 1, and then click on Python challenge number 1. This will open up a Jupyter notebook. So hopefully you are familiar with how Jupyter notebooks work. And then here's where the challenge is located, down here. This is something generic that is you should read. That gives you some information. But I'm just going to verbally go through on how to work through the challenge. So you go down here, you read the exercise, given a list of integers. Return the difference between the largest and smallest values. All right, that's great. So what happens there, so this is how all the challenges work. They're formulated as a function. So you don't change anything in the function signature. You only write code below here, this comment, your code here. So you delete this raised not implemented error, and you write your code over here. So this first challenge, this exercise is being passed a list. So this is the variable name a list. Your goal is to return something. You always have to return something from this function, which will be named exercise 1. So you're going to return your answer over here. So there's some sample data over here. If you do max of a list, so you can do this. This is not the right answer. So this is how you can test your code. Right, so you run this exercise 1. This is what you just executed. This is what you just put in. So here I'm taking the max. This is not the right answer. That's not the difference between the largest and smallest values. You can see the maximum of this list is 10. And then if you run this, you'll see if you get it correct. This is just a quick test to see if you get it correct. The answer is 30 for this one. So 10 does not equal 30. You will get an assertion error. If you get it right, there will be no error here whatsoever. All right, so this is just a little test for correctness. Just because you get this test correct, it doesn't mean you actually get the entire question right. There are actually multiple tests run down here in some hidden cells. But basically, that is it. You just write your solution, and then you test, and you can just test it here, or just get some feedback here. And then you finally test for correctness with this assert statement. So if you get this one right, you should be fairly certain your solution is correct. But the only way to really know is to submit this assignment. So the way to submit it is to go back over here to the, go back one tab. And what you're going to do is click the submit button. Right, so once you've written your code with the return statement in the function, you click submit. You might have to wait 10 to 15 seconds, and then you're going to click Fetch Feedback, and then you can see if you get it correct. So when you click Fetch Feedback, you'll get a link over here to an HTML document, which will tell you if you got the question right or wrong. So in a previous time I have run this, I got the question right. So you'll see you get 1 out of 1, and that means you got it correct. If not, it'll say 0 out of 1 and you got it incorrect. All right, so that is how you do it. Let's go review everything once again from the beginning. So when you land on this page, you're going to click on the Assignments tab. You're going to go in the drop-down menu, click Python Challenges. You will fetch the assignment. You will go down to Downloaded Assignments and then click on Python Challenge number whatever. You will then read the challenge, and then you will write your code only down here. You will not change anything above here. Only code you will write is going to appear underneath this Your Code Here comment. And you need to make sure you answer this. So you're going to have a return statement. You can test your code out here and then verify for correctness over here. But then you have to submit it. So you go back to the home page and you just click Submit. You wait 10 to 15 seconds. Then you click Fetch Feedback and then click this link to see if you actually got it correct. So those are all of the steps to answering and submitting the challenge. One other thing to note is if you go back to the original tab over here, Files, this is the opening home screen. Whenever you log in to the python.dunderdata.com, you can click here, Start Here, and this will give you more information on how to, it's everything I just talked about, just in words. It'll tell you how to complete each assignment and to submit it as well. So you can click on that notebook, Start Here, and it'll just give you the same information as I just went through. All right, so the next videos are just going to show you the solutions. You should obviously try to answer the challenges first before you watch the solutions, and then keep going and keep challenging yourself. Answer the challenge and then watch the solution video. Welcome to Dunder Data Python Challenge number 1. These are daily exercises to challenge your Python skills. You can take all of the challenges at python.dunderdata.com. In this video, I'm going to be showing you the solution to challenge number 1. So if you haven't attempted the challenge yet, pause the video, go visit python.dunderdata.com, enter your solution, which will get automatically graded, and then come back here to view my solution. So in this challenge, you are given a list of integers, and your job is to return the difference between the largest and smallest values. So for all of these challenges, you'll be writing your code within the body of this function. You'll come down here to the very bottom, delete this raise not implemented error, and then write your code here. So with this function, it accepts a single argument, which is a list of integers, and our job is to just find the maximum value in this list and subtract from it the minimum value. So this is a pretty simple challenge that can be solved in a single line. So if you go down here, we can just immediately begin with a return statement. We'll find the maximum value with the max built-in function, and then the minimum value with the min built-in function. We'll subtract the two and then return that value. After writing our code, we can execute the cell so that we can have our function available. Now in the cell below, our function is passed some sample input. Here is a list of 3 integers, with 10 being the max and negative 20 being the minimum. And as expected, we should get 30 as the difference between the max and the minimum. Now there's one more cell below which will verify using an assert statement that our function does produce the correct output. When we execute this, if nothing happens, then we've gotten a correct result. If there is an error, that means there's something wrong with our output. So say for instance, instead of 10, this was 40. So the difference between the max and min would be 60. That would not equal this result of 30. So we'd get an error over here, but with the given sample input, we didn't get any message. So we know that our function did produce the correct result. So that wraps up Dunder Data Python Challenge number 1. As you might expect, the challenges will increase in difficulty as time moves on, and they will increase in point values based on their difficulty. So if you want to take all the challenges, again, visit python.dunderdata.com. Welcome to Dunder Data Python Challenge number 2. These are daily exercises to challenge your Python skills. You can take all of the challenges at python.dunderdata.com. So in this exercise, you're given any number of lists of integers, and your goal is to return the list with the largest total. Let's go ahead and write our code in the body of the function. So our function accepts any number of lists of integers and assigns them to the variable name lists. So lists will end up being a tuple of lists of integers. So if you're unfamiliar with this star notation in front of a variable name, I will explain that now. So normally variable names don't have this star, and each variable name is assigned a single argument. Well, whenever you put a star in front of a variable name like this, it allows you to assign any number of positional arguments to a single variable name as a tuple. Take a look below to see some specific examples. So when we execute this line of code right here, the function is passed two arguments, both of which are lists, and the variable name lists are assigned each of these lists as a tuple. So list is a 2-item tuple equal to both of the arguments. Similarly, in this example, 3 arguments are passed to our function, and those 3 arguments are assigned as a tuple to our variable name lists. Even if you have 1 argument that you're passing to the function, it will be assigned to list as a 1-item tuple, and even 0 arguments, there will be a 0-item tuple created and be assigned to lists. Now that we understand star notation, let's go ahead and write our code. I'm going to present 2 solutions, one naive one and then another that is a little bit more clever. Let's begin with a naive solution, which will iterate through each one of these lists, take the sum of that list as the total, and then if that total is larger than any of the previous totals, we'll keep that list and that total saved, and then return whichever list has the largest total at the end of the iteration. Let's delete the raise not implemented error and begin our code here. Before we start iterating, we won't have a maximum total or a list that produces the maximum to compare it against. So we'll create 2 variables. One will be the max total. That'll just simply be the total of the first list. So we'll just say the first list, since it's the first one we encounter, that'll be the one that has the maximum total. And we'll save this list as the max list like this. So now we'll iterate through each one of the other lists. We'll create a new variable called current list, and we'll iterate through the rest of them. We will use slice notation here. We don't have to look at the first one again anymore. We'll just slice from the second all the way to the end. And then inside the for loop, the first thing that we'll check is we'll get the total of the current list like this. Now, if this current total is greater than the max total, then we will reassign max total to be the current total like that. We'll also reassign the max list to be the current list like this. So that should do it inside of the for loop, and then we just need to make sure we return the maximum list at the end. In this exercise, we don't care about the max total. We're just using that to see which list produces that maximum. And so this code should do it. So let's execute this cell like that. Now, here is a cell that will allow you to use your function with some sample data. So here we have 2 lists that are passed into our function, 1, 5, which has a sum of 6, and then 9, 10, and -20, which has a sum of -1. So 1, 5 should be the one that it outputs, which is correct. Now we can keep adding new lists over here to see how it performs. So we can add it one that is certainly greater. So that's good. And then we can add maybe another one that is going to be less, and that it should still choose this one as the greatest. So it looks like it's working here. So that's good. Here is a way to use an assert statement. This is what we'll be used during the grading process to determine whether or not you've got it right. It will actually use different inputs, so just because you get this one correct doesn't mean that your solution is going to be marked as correct. But this is just one simple test, and executing this should yield nothing. If you do get an error, that means there's something wrong with your code. So that is the naive solution. I'll show you the clever solution in the next video. Welcome to Dunder Data Python Challenge number 2. These are daily exercises to challenge your Python skills. You can take all of the challenges at python.dunderdata.com. In the previous video, a naive solution was shown, and in this video, a much more clever one will be used. Let's go ahead and look at the challenge again. Given any number of list of integers, return the list with the largest total. The naive solution is an iterative one, and it's still shown here below. I'm going to go ahead and delete this and start our code right here. So believe it or not, this challenge is solvable in a single line of code. We can immediately begin with a return statement and use the max built-in function, passing it in the list variable. List is a tuple of lists of integers, so this max function is getting a bunch of lists and returning one of them. This isn't the correct code, but I want to discuss exactly what Python does whenever you pass in the max built-in function a bunch of lists. It's not intuitive to me what the max function would return if it receives a tuple of lists, but it does have a set of rules that it follows. Let's take a look at this simple example down here where we have two lists. Python will look at the first value in each list and compare them. Whichever list has the greatest value in that first position is considered to be the maximum. So in this example, the maximum list is the second one. Let's go ahead and execute this cell so that we can use our function and then verify that the second list is considered the maximum for Python. This is not the result we want. We want the list that produces the maximum total, and in that case it is 1, 5, which has a total of 6. 9, 10, and negative 20 has a total of negative 1. Thankfully, Python gives us a way to change the rules of how it evaluates the maximum. We can set the key parameter to a function that will be passed each individual list, and the result of that function will be used in determining the maximum. So in this case, we will set the key parameter to the built-in sum function, which will be passed each individual list. So we can take the sum of each individual list, and whichever list has the maximum sum, that is what we will consider as the maximum list. So we are changing the rules of the max function by setting this key parameter here to some other function which must return just another result. So let's go ahead and re-execute this code cell, and then we can execute this cell again to see that now the maximum list is correctly chosen as 1, 5. Let's pass in some more data here so you can see some different examples. So of course, if we just choose a list here that has much higher values, it should choose that one as the maximum. And just to have something that is not quite as high, we can see that it still chooses this one as the maximum. So it looks like our function is working. And what you could do one more time here is just to use this assert statement. This will just return or raise an error if your code is incorrect. And if not, it'll show you that it is passed. So if nothing happens, then it is passing. So that is the clever solution to Dunder Data Challenge number 2. Very short amount of code. Just have to make sure to use the key parameter to change the behavior of how Python inherently sorts and figures out what the maximum is.